Yes, thank you for having us. My name is Carl Farrington. I'd like to introduce us before we go into our why. I am the member development representative here at Mastery Transcript Consortium, or as we like to say, MTC, because that is a lot to say. And I'd like to, I deal with everything that has to do with schools or learning organizations coming into the consortium. I would like to introduce you to my colleague.
Hi, everybody, and fun to see a number of familiar names and faces, and some new friends as well. Hi, everybody. And like many of you, I have just been loving being part of this conference and listening to the keynotes, and got to join the virtual school tour today. It was just fabulous. I am been with the MTC since launch and have the privilege of working closely with our schools who are publishing and sharing MTC records. And we'll share more about those with you in a few minutes. I come to this work as a high school teacher and administrator who really did my best to create an environment for students that was student-centered, enriching, as inspiring as it possibly could be. And increasingly, as I took more responsibility on in my school, I felt more and more like I was not meeting the students' needs. Despite what I was doing, the system was not built for individual students. So looking at all the themes of this particular conference, and particularly its focus on humanity and individuals, I am so thrilled to tell you that in this MTC journey, what I've seen are so many schools who are doing this so well. And we're going to share a little bit more about this with you today. Our lever for this are these competency-based records, which in the ultimate of backward design, really give folks a vision for what they're going for in personalizing the learning. So Carl, want to take it from there?
Yeah, I would like to give my why before we get started. Like many of you who are educators on this call, I witness limitations of traditional grading systems. I was a teacher for 14 years, taught fifth grade, and I saw that, like many of you all, students excel in diverse ways that were not captured by letter grades. And so for me, I was in a lucky spot where I was in my third year of teaching, and I had an administration who advocated for a comprehensive approach to evaluating skills and knowledge. And so that put us down the road of student-centered, competency-based, personalized learning. And for me, I saw students love education like never before. And what I mean by that is that students have flexible pathways to really have a choice to do the things that they were passionate about doing. And with doing that, students were able to, of course, foster some of those important competencies and skills that are important for their success, such as critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, and collaboration. And for me, it was sort of like this light bulb went off and said, this is what brings equity to education. And the reason why I say it promotes equity, because it recognizes the individual abilities and efforts of our students. So thank you for bearing with me just for that little soliloquy there, but we just wanted to share our passion through the work we do. And so just to give it to you in a nutshell, MTC is a national, and I like to say global, nonprofit organization. We are a membership organization, and our main goal is to be able to give you the tools in order to produce credentials, right, that are scalable to competency-based or mastery learning. And the main thing I love about it is that we empower students to showcase those skills or competencies and evidence of their learning through our records. So this is where we're at today. We have approximately 400 private and public school members. A majority of those are public, and that's where we always wanted to aim for. A lot of people say, oh, you started as private, but we always aim to be more public than private. We have over 250,000, I'm sorry, learners who are enrolled in our schools. And we do work from a state district level as well. So we have state agreements with North Dakota. We do work with the state of Utah, and they have built out from a public policy standpoint from their own state board of education, their own portrait of a graduate from a top down level. So we also have a cohort with New York City Public Schools. Mesa is a really big district that have decided to scale from elementary all the way through high school. And we'll explain more. Elementary primarily are using one of our newer products, which is the MTC Progress Tracker. So this is the good news I'm excited about. So if you see the trajectory of where we started at, you'll see in 2019, 0, 2020, 57, 170, 2021, 265, 2022. 2023, we have 381. And this year, we have had over 578 colleges and universities admit applicants using our records here at MTC. That is amazing. Now, if you go to our website, bear with us, just because you may see the number of 498, that will be updated within the next week or so. But as of yesterday, we received this good news that over 578 colleges and universities accept our records. And these are just some of the schools that accept our Mastery Transcript or the MTC Learning Record. Many more on our website. So here, I just wanted to show, and I know many of you on the call, I travel all over the country attending various conferences. And I tell you what, even just, I dwell here in Detroit, Michigan, but just talking to friends who are in the education space or people at various conferences, K through 12 leaders alike are eager to adopt any of these learner-centered models that we showcase here on this screen. Some of you all are already implementing all of these. So project-based or problem-based learning, personalized learning, mastery learning and grading, 21st century skills. I know a lot of you all have a portrait of a graduate and really ready to show those durable skills or 21st century skills that your students have or are capable of mastering, and interdisciplinary learning. So as we go all over the country, this is something that has come up. So we know that it is vital for our children. And if you look, our existing crediting and assessment, they do come with constraints of innovation. And some of you already know that. And I will say one thing about grading that I mentioned previously is just that with the grading component that is out there, it doesn't give students necessarily a way to showcase their strengths and show what they're capable of. And two, when you have seat time, everything is in a hustle, very fast pace, where students don't even really truly get an opportunity to showcase what they have mastered, because after 16 weeks, it's time to move on. So it's not even the fault of the teachers, it's the fault of the system. And so that's what we're working on, to turn the system upside down. And as you look at our records, I love this just because innovative records truly empower every learner to tell their story. They're able to show what they know, what they can do with what they know. And so students have that ability to showcase evidence, work that they are passionate about, that they want to showcase and show that they have mastered, pertaining or attached to specific competencies or skills. Here are some of our tools. Bear with me. I'm going to work right to left first. So as we started as summative records. So we started with our Mastery Transcript. Just to give you a little bit about our Mastery Transcript, it is a full replacement for a high school transcript. So it is based on completion of courses, mastery of competencies, student evidence, no Carnegie credits, no letter grade, no GPA. And that list you saw at 578, yes, they have accepted the Mastery Transcript without letter grades, GPA, all of that, basically showing the mastery of competencies and student evidence and completion of courses. Where you see above is the MTC learning record. That showcases, it has the same architectural layout and design as the Mastery Transcript, but it can be used alongside with a traditional transcript. So a lot of our members who are using the MTC learning record, or the acronym we like to use internally is the MLR, are schools that are really saying, hey, you know what? We want to showcase our portrait of a graduate. And at the same time, we're not quite ready to get rid of grades just yet. And so they're using that. And guess what? Whenever they're ready to go gradeless, they can go to the Mastery Transcript. And so if you look to the left, you'll see it says the progress tracker, and that is more formative reporting. And I always tell people, really, it happened organically. It happened from our members saying, we need something formative because we're not doing a good job at we're creating things on Excel spreadsheets for families, and it's just not working out. So we listened to our members and we created a progress tracker that is specifically for parents, learners, and staff to see from a more formative reporting where students are as far as getting to mastery learning. Here is, I like to call it a wireframe or a slide of the MTC progress tracker. And you'll see here, you have the learners, you have the competencies here. And just to give you a snapshot of exactly how that looks. So you'll see this competency here, evaluate the main ideals and themes. And you'll see this is a 3-point learning scale that the school is using to show mastery. So a student can have the first check and it tells you that emerging earned, and it really explains what they're able to do. You see the second check, far as getting to mastery, it tells you developing earned, and it tells you exactly what the student can do. And then the third means that the student has mastered this specific competency here, and it entails demonstrating earned and what the student was able to master there. Students are also able to upload evidence to attach to these specific competency here as well. So here we go. So here's examples of the Mastery Transcript in the MTC Learning Record, which we call the MLR. So you'll see both of them. You'll see the Mastery Transcript in blue. You'll see the MTC Learning Record in orange. And really, you'll see the same architectural layout with competencies and things. The biggest difference is that the MLR has a traditional transcript, or as we say on the MLR, legacy transcript attached to it. Same, you can also for both, they have competencies, frameworks attached to them, and students' evidence as a piece to both.
Thanks, Carl. I'm going to go to the next three. Thanks.
Yes.
We thought we would jump in a little bit with what we've learned from some of the schools we've worked with. And I see some great questions coming in the chat here. And I'm going to have you ask you to go back one slide, Carl, just to share, as you mentioned, there have been a huge increase in the number of schools and districts and communities that have focused on this sort of fundamental question of what is school for? And then as you start to answer that, what are the portraits of a learner? What is it that a school is promising its learners, its community, that graduates will know and can do? And often that takes the form of, as many of you seen, a portrait of a graduate, a portrait of a learner. And this is an example from one school we've worked with in central Massachusetts in the Mendon-Upton Regional School District. So as more and more folks are doing this, then the question is, once you've done a really deep process to figure out what is in our context, what are the important competencies, particularly at this high level, then what do we do next? And so one of the things we've found is that there's a wide variety of approaches in working with a number of different folks on how you move to the next level of implementing something like a portrait of a learner. Go ahead. Thanks, Carl. To the next slide. And one example that we've seen, this is from a member school, James Madison High School in Fairfax County, Virginia, is there's a small group of faculty and an increasingly large group of students who are meeting regularly and writing and revising and testing what their competencies and what the competency descriptors will be. They've been building out learning records as part of this process, editing their competencies, passing along the project to the next group of 11th and 12th graders as kids graduate, with an evolutionary process of continuous improvement. And then over time, ideally having this be something that more and more students in the school are part of and own and are proud to say, our school is teaching, we are practicing these competencies, and we are showing them on our learning records along with our traditional academic transcripts. So that's another example just to share. We've heard from Lighthouse Holyoke that what they've seen in their community is the difference that they're using the Mastery Transcript has made for their learners, who largely come to them in many different situations, including that traditional high schools are not working for them. And a universal thing that, including this young man who graduated recently, represents is that his high school transcript did not in any way accurately portray his growth and his knowledge and his abilities. He had some tough spots in high school, and those were represented by poor grades that are permanent on a traditional transcript. Alternatively, his mastery transcript, he was allowed to focus on the deep learning that he'd done, the important examples of his evidence, examples of learning in his evidence that he was very proud of, and school validating his mastery credits that he had earned. So mastery transcripts and learning records show what you have accomplished against the school's defined standards, but it does not show what you haven't done or the rough spots that you had along the way that may have slowed you down, but then you caught up. The things what it shows is where you've gone deeply, what you love, where you've made progress, and the things that you're still working on, and maybe those bumps in the road, those are not highlighted on these records. This student, Jay, is now mentioned here in a PhD program in pharmacy, something that he likely never would have made his way to had his grades in high school been the legacy of his high school experience. And then back to Nipmuc again, they've done some really nice work in creating beliefs about learning that I think are important about learners, educators, their community, and their learning environment, and have really made these ubiquitous around their school and for all the stakeholders in their community. And Carl, the next slide in particular really highlights the core of, I think, why we're all here today. And that is that we really believe every learner is unique and has the potential to be inspired by a true sense of purpose. And how does school fulfill this? And that is the place that Nipmuc and other MTC members are really focusing a great deal of time and energy. Another one that I loved from a member school was they had a long definition of learning, which is a lot of the who, what, why. But this particular quote jumped out at me. People do not learn to pass a test, to make it through the school day, to get a grade, or to be the best. And what we all know is too many students see this as the central core of their purpose in school. And so I really love that this school called this out explicitly in their definition of learning. And so finally, a whole bunch of the things that we've learned sort of summarized here when we're seeing folks start to use the learning record, even the mastery transcript, the progress tracker, that all of this continues to promote student agency, which we know empowers learners to tell their stories. Belonging and positive reinforcement and agency, we know, are all directly related to learning. And as we heard in our keynote, that emotional engagement is directly related to learning. Student-educator relationships and learning are prioritized here because it's all about continuing to work on the practicing of these skills, developing them, working through projects, learning, all kinds of exercises, whatever the learning environment is. The goal is to continue to demonstrate and deepen your skills. That means educators are coaches and less focused perhaps on judging and incessant judging. Owners have all the agency to decide what gets uploaded as their samples of evidence. They really own that. There's a lot, it's verified and approved by an educator, but learners have responsibility for all of that. And again, how do you take a portrait of a graduate, a portrait of a learner, and start to use it and make it public and transparent and important and central to what's going on in a learning environment? And then lastly, I think we have our contact information and time for some questions, but hope that you will be in touch with us with feedback, with questions, with more about your own experiences. And I want to call out especially Community Lab School. If you weren't able to watch that virtual tour and hear more about their school, they are using the learning record, and it's a remarkable school. And then Clark Street Community School in Wisconsin will be featured tomorrow. And they have been part of the Mastery Transcript group really since the beginning. So I think they're in year 5 of publishing Mastery transcripts out at Clark Street Community School. So at least 2 wonderful members within the program here today, in addition to the ones that I've just highlighted. And I will stop there. Welcome your questions.
That's great. Thank you both so much. I know Josh has been patiently waiting with his hand up in the queue, so maybe we'll defer to him
Thanks, Josh.
first.
Carl, is it possible to put the slides back up again and to go back to the Madison High School slide? Yeah, so I just wanted to point out here that because What School Could Be hosted a virtual session with a bunch of educators where Beth Blankenship, the teacher, and 6 of her seniors explained what they were actually doing in this program and how MTC was magic to them. What's actually happening in this photo is that the students are brainstorming competencies. So it's like a deep dive into the very meaning of the word. I mean, it's one thing to say I'm competent, but it's a whole different thing to say I have this competency and this competency and this competency. And then it starts to become very personal, and it starts to become very humane, if you will, since we're restoring humanity here. As I noted in the chat, I mean, there was nothing humane, nothing about my high school transcript or any of the comments I ever received or anything about that process at all. And what's so cool about this photo is that the students are trying to figure out what competencies actually are, and then what's the total list, and then what are mine. And it's just really, really neat to see this photo again, which Beth shared as part of a slide deck. So I just wanted to point that out, and I really appreciate that you folks are doing this presentation today.
Well, thank you for adding that additional and wonderful context to this slide. Kina, I see a question.
Hello, thank you. This is so cool. I really like the Mastery Transcript, and I feel like you guys did like address that point of like what about colleges, right? Something that I think would be an issue for my school is like we're like very much like a transition school for a lot of students. A lot of students are only expecting to be with us for like a semester or like a year. And their ultimate goal is to go back to the traditional school setting. I guess I'm just curious if there is any like guidance or assistance in transforming like from a mastery transcript or the progress report with other schools, I guess.
We have had some experience with that, and have worked with a number of programs that are shorter duration and not a full 4-year high school program or a K-12 program. And I think knowing in advance that there may be some translation going on can help you to structure how you would create those learning records or mastery transcripts, depending on which made the most sense. I think either way, the most important thing for what we found in situations like that, where students may be moving on to a more traditional high school program, is simply to have a list of courses that are fairly vanilla sounding. And sometimes they are course equivalents based on content that's embedded in your projects. And so that's something that we do have a lot of experience helping schools to develop the course and course equivalents completed, if you will, so that kids can, quote, then earn the Carnegie unit credits that they need to have to graduate from whatever high school they're going to graduate from.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Even though the students, by and large, in those situations would prefer to stay with you forever.
I think we got time for one more. Go ahead.
For me? Yay. So I'm just curious because I'm an ESL teacher in Massachusetts, and in Worcester, Massachusetts, actually. And our school has the highest percent of L's of any other school in the district. So I'm always looking for the connection to multilingual learners. So how has this worked for multilingual learners?
That's a great question that I think would be good to address to some of our colleagues at the member schools specifically. But going back to Carl's point, I think what we have understood is that when the competency-based system where the standards are high, but how you get there is more variable, both in time and in your exhibitions of learning, which can vary, that as with students with all different kinds of strengths and perhaps things they're still working on, by personalizing some of those pathways to demonstrating learning, you are, as Carl said, providing that greater equity. And so for English language learners, providing varied ways, varied media, multiple opportunities to show that they have mastered certain skills. So I don't have any specific examples, but perhaps we can talk to Clark Street and Community Lab School who are involved in this conference and get some more specific examples from them about their English language learners.
I think that's a great idea. I think I'll put the link to the Mastery Transcript Consortium in the chat here. And of course, we'll share, contact information for both Patricia and Carl as well. And again, as always, we get to continue the conversation in the Discord after this too. And of course, get to see those partner schools in action and get to converse with them here the next couple of days too. So a huge thank you again to Patricia and Carl from MTC for joining us here to explain what's new and what's happened with the Mastery Transcripts Consortium. Another quick reminder that speaking of those school tours, we do have coming up here in about 12 minutes. So here at the bottom of the hour at 3:30 Eastern time, a virtual tour student panel discussion with the Nova Lab. So we'll be right back up here on the link to talk with some teachers and a group of kids about their experience at the Nova Lab. So again, thank you both Patricia and Carl again. Thank you all for attending here, and we'll look forward to seeing you very shortly. Take care.